wake up.
This is a brand new episode of Wake Up Right.
Wake up.
With your workout buddies, April and sometimes Yenna. Your hit podcast. Your much needed hit of encouragement, empowerment, and motivation to live and grow each day a little brighter.
Welcome to Wake Up Right, your hit podcast. Erin is joining me as a co-host and hopefully reoccurring co-host on this episode.
Woohoo!
So, hello. Yeah, Erin, if you missed it, we went into his background, his story in a previous podcast. So it will be linked in the description of the podcast, as well as the description of the video, all of the places.
Don't miss it.
Yeah, it's a great one. It was a good one. I want to thank everybody for over 1,700 downloads in the first month of the podcast. That's really good. I know it, like with YouTube, if you're coming from a YouTube audience, you might be like, oh, that's not a lot. In the podcast world, for a out of nowhere podcast, that's pretty huge. I think it puts us in the top like 30% of podcast.
That's pretty awesome.
So yeah, I'm floored. I'm so excited. So excited. Yenna will likely be back from traveling the world in September, and I'm pretty excited. Until then, Erin will...
I am Yenna for the time being. Sorry, Yenna. Sorry, I don't want to replace you. I'm kidding.
I don't remember which video it was, but somebody asked the question, I work full-time. How do I get in my activity?
That question in the live chat of that video struck me as so important as well. I can't tell you how many people I hear say that exact thing, that it's probably the most common question or issue that I hear people saying, that I'm so busy. I don't know how to, fit exercise or whatever into my daily life. And it really is such an incredibly common issue. So what I typically will tell people is, look, you have to think about it in terms of priorities, right? And break it down. Now, it's not always so easy to break down. A lot of people don't realize they're not always conscious of their priorities. So what I was thinking of in terms of advice I can give people to kind of break down their priorities is to not sit there and literally like think it out, because that doesn't always work for everyone, right? It's like this. I threw my mom under the bus in the last episode. I'm not going to do that again.
I love that you brought that story up, because I didn't want to share, because I'm like, man, I don't want to bring his mom up again. But that story, like, at least not in that way. That story really made me think about things and made me kind of there for a few days. I kind of like just sketched down what I was doing just to kind of look at. Because I mean, with me fitting fitness in typically that's not something that I struggle to do necessarily, but I put other, like, there's always things that I get. It's always a trade. Like, what are you trading? And there's things that I will let slip. And sometimes that's not acceptable.
Well, so where I was going with that is exactly what you just said, which I'm glad you did say that, because I think the way to figure out what your priorities are is actually to sit there. So at the end of the day, people could do this throughout the course of the day, but maybe it's even better to do this as a new habit practice at the end of a day, and every day for a week. Write down, to the best of your recollection, what did you do that day? Okay. What did your whole day look like? And with approximate timeframes, right? It doesn't have to be like to the minute or whatever. It's not like an attorney recording what they did minute to minute, but a ballpark, right? Ate breakfast and then got ready from this time to that time, went to work, blah, 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 whatever. And then, was there physical activity, intentional physical activity in the middle of any part of the day, the work day, or not? And whatever. And then coming home. And then I think the morning and the evening and the middle of the day are the most important things, because when you're not working, right? When you're on your personal time, then how do you spend your time? What does that look like? Because those are more of the optional times during the day where you have the ability to elect what you do with your free time. And let's be honest, I work, my God, 12 to 15 hours a day. No one said this was easy, right? But you know what? I bake in that time into my day, most days, to get the exercise in, to go to the gym, whether it's in my home gym at home or down the road, the gym like that I love going to.
But a lot of people think that I don't do anything all day, when in actuality, I work about 60 to probably 70 hours a week.
I beat you. I'd probably do more than that. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I bet you do.
It's crazy hours.
Yeah. So, but
no one realizes how much work this is.
I love this other quote that I found. Where is it? The key is not to prioritize your schedule, but to schedule your priorities.
Yes. And it's a priority. So if that's not happening, look at the end of that day or at the end of the week, after you've done this for several days, at the end of every day, look at that calendar, that schedule that you've now made, itemizing how you spent the time. And I can almost guarantee that most people who don't have exercise built into their schedule, they're spending time sitting on I love it, the couch of doom, right? And they get stuck. It's like this evil thing that like sucks you in, and you can't, once you sit on that couch of doom, you are not leaving it, all right? It's really hard to get off of that thing. It just calls your name and it doesn't want to let you go. So how many hours are actually spent sitting and watching television? Maybe snacking while you're eating, or just sitting there and not doing something more constructive. Like, you can still watch TV, but you can do it on a treadmill. Maybe not everyone has a treadmill. Not everyone has a TV in front of a treadmill, so there's all different things, but like there's ways to get around it and to still accomplish the goal of doing something that you enjoy, while also figuring out how to then look at what you've done, how you spent your time, and seeing what your priorities have been to date and typically are, and figuring out, well, what can I move around in this schedule? What am I most comfortable removing, partly or entirely, that I don't need? Maybe an unhealthy habit or a less productive habit or something that's just time waster, and fill that with exercise of some sort, physical activity, going for a walk, whatever it is, and change the narrative, change the experience, and replace these things with healthier habits. That's how you start to identify what your priorities are and where you can kind of fit these new, better ones in.
So two things. One, I think with that, you have to look at your schedule and fit things that you want to fit into your schedule. So maybe that looks like 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there.
Absolutely.
Maybe that looks like you have 45 minutes for lunch, and you take 15 minutes and you walk up and down the stairs in the office. Like, it does not have to look like, some girl you watch on YouTube that is fortunate enough to have a home gym. Fitness journey doesn't have to look like anyone else's as far as fitting it in. And two, it shouldn't. So like, if I were an RN, let's say, because I would like your insight on this specific scenario. So if you are an RN and you've spent the last year and a half emotionally and physically taxed, overworking, not exactly receiving extra pay or benefits, you're exhausted. Mm-hmm. So many nurses have gained so much weight over the last year. Maybe it doesn't start with a fitness journey as in working out. Maybe it looks like self-care and legs up the wall, like some gentle yoga, and starting to bring some calmness back. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. And before you can schedule your priorities, you really have to reflect and decide what your priorities are. So for everybody, that's going to look a little bit different. And speaking of that, I kind of want to touch on, this is another thing that was on the list. So as I share my journey on YouTube, I am often in a state of reflecting on what I've done, reflecting on the things that have gone well, the things that have gone not well, that I could have done better. In my mind, I don't make excuses because I don't have anything to excuse. I reflect on my process and make changes accordingly, and I move forward. What are your thoughts on excuses or reflections on setting boundaries and assessing your needs and kind of picking your priorities, finding your process for success?
Interesting. So, the excuse thing is interesting. I think about what some people who I know on YouTube say. There's a guy I know, I'm sure a lot of people on your channel know, Greg Doucette. He's like, there's no excuses. Like, just do it. Look, you know what? Everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different purpose and reason and whatever. It's not just so easy. Like he has another saying, just put the fork down. It's not that easy for everybody. Right. But the excuse part, there's always going to be a reason why, there's always going to be a reason you can come up with as to why you shouldn't or can't do something like that whole thing with my mom. Right. There's always a reason why someone could say, I just don't have the time, or I can't do it today. Or, I don't know. I don't feel confident enough to go to the gym, or I don't feel good about myself I don't know what I'm doing. If I'm going to start working out, where do I start? What do I do? And those things are used as excuses of why not to do it. And those excuses, look, end of the day, the excuses will always be there. There's always going to be a reason, another reason why you can't. But the important thing is to find reasons why you can and why you should. So, and that I think is really tied to the priorities and to think bigger picture. I know I said before, don't think long-term goals, but at the same time with this stuff, I think it does pay to think bigger picture. Long-term, where do you see yourself 10 years, 30 years? Right? Where do you want to be 10, 30 years from now, whatever, 40 years from now? Where do you want to see your life? Because at the end of the day, we all have one body. We all have one life to live, unless someone who's listening believes in reincarnation, right? We only have one chance to do this. So we better do it well. We better do it the best way we can to live the best and most positive and healthy and happy life that we're able to. So don't excuses are, they just hold us back. They're not serving anyone. They're serving our downside. They're withholding us from our happiness. So it's important, I think, for all of us to identify if we are trapped in that kind of mindset of excuses, making excuses and reasons why we.
To me, an excuse is validating a desire that is not aligned with what maybe we should be doing or we feel we should be doing, or maybe the list of priorities. So maybe I've made a list of priorities. I want to work out and I want to lose 10 pounds, but that's really not aligned with what I'm wanting. So then I make excuses like, oh, I didn't work out at all this month because I stumped my toe and it hurt really bad. And then my friend needed her car washed. And so I washed her car. And so I didn't do anything. It's finding reasons to not be successful. I feel like that's what an excuse is.
Yeah.
What I do on YouTube and just that kind of, so you've got excuses on YouTube. I'm reflecting on what I've done so that I can improve upon it and move forward better. Not saying, and I do not feel like I have failed at what I'm trying to do ever. I feel like I have continuously moved forward better than I was before. Now, does that mean I've moved forward perfectly and I've never done anything wrong and I'm without fault? Of course not. There are things that I've done wrong, but I'm also not going to excuse not being successful and quitting my journey because it's not perfect. So reflecting on the process, reflecting on what I could have done better, and then doing it better is different than making excuses.
Totally agree.
So looking at a spreadsheet of the steps I took in June and July, I'm like, in my mind, I did more than that. That doesn't take away from the fact that I still took a lot of steps comparatively speaking, it was progress in June. I made progress even more than June in July, an increase of 30%, but I want more. And so I'm not making an excuse because I don't feel like an excuse is warranted. That is what I did. I am accountable to what I did or didn't do. And I'm setting more aggressive goals to get to further down my weight loss journey.
Yet still reasonable.
Still reasonable, yes. But going back to excuses or reflection, I think being able to identify, I think people are accused of making excuses a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not always excuses. So conversation to have with yourself.
Totally.
Like, okay, so I want to work out, and you have 10 excuses to not work out, and you don't work out. When you reflect on that, did you prioritize your excuses? Were they actually prioritize? Like, were they actually priorities, or did you just not want to work out and just not work out? Like, I feel like it's different. So like, I want to work out today and I'm driving home from work and I get rear-ended and I get whiplash and I don't work out. Well, that's an excuse for not working out, but it's pretty darn valid. So like reflecting on that decision-making process helps you grow.
I totally agree. I also think it's about, what you said before that too. I liken that to like, if you make a mistake, or if someone doesn't successfully, is not able to exercise in a given week where they plan to start. Everyone makes mistakes and they are okay. It's a part of the journey. It's how we learn. It's how we become better than we were yesterday. If we didn't make mistakes, if we didn't stumble every so often, hit a hurdle, a roadblock, a speed bump, or whatever you want to call it, we would never learn how to be successful. Every CEO of every company, every successful person will always tell you a big piece of why they're successful is they failed. And failure teaches you how to succeed. Okay. Failure is a part of exercise. If you don't go too close to failure or to failure with most of your exercises in any working set, you're not going to stimulate your muscles enough to get stronger, get bigger. Failure is a part of so many things in life that cause improvements. So for people to say that about you or anyone else who ever failed, I'm not saying you failed, you didn't. And you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. If you had a stumbling block or something, that is inappropriate for them to say that.
For so many people, because it could look like
people fear it then.
You go to your family reunion and you decide you want a cookie and it fits within your goals, and you eat a cookie and you have somebody come up to you and be like,
you ate a cookie.
I thought you were on a diet. I guess that didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like comes.
Who are you to judge my cookie eating? Come on. I'm not, I know. I know exactly what you're saying. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. So, and it's something that we all you don't have to excuse that. If you are working on your weight loss, and regardless of that, you don't owe an explanation to other people. You may choose to give one, but that's different. And that's where good boundary setting for like other people comes in. Like, boundaries are so important. But like, if you have chosen to have a cookie, that does not mean that you are off track, off your diet, and you're about to ruin your life. Changing that narrative is so important. That toxic diet culture that says like you have to be so incredibly precise and perfect all of the time or you're going to fail is wrong. It's a lie. It's a lie. And it's the reason most people aren't successful. That toxic thinking is why most people aren't successful, because it is okay to not be perfect. It's progress, not perfection, to be super cliched. Daily progress over time, as you said perfectly earlier, compounds. Your good habits will compound and you will end up better overall.
Yeah, I look at progress over a period of time is actually the better way to also look at it. Like I tell people, for me, it's just a habit for me. Like I'll weigh myself every morning at the same time every day. That's just me. But for my clients, I typically don't always suggest that. I sometimes will say, if you're even going to hop on a scale once a week, right? No, it's different for everyone. It really depends on that person's mindset, but you're looking at the trend over time. You're looking at, and it's not just about the scale. It's about the trend of your ability of what you're doing, your actions, your habits, all these different things, and then how they impact your goals and your progress over time. It's a constant evaluative process and learning from whatever positives or negatives happen along the way. It's really what it comes down to. So I think that it really plays into what we were saying.
It's not always fun to start.
No.
Like
we don't think it is.
Yeah, especially in the moment. Like at 350 pounds, washing the dishes was hard for me to do standing without extreme lower back pain.
Yeah.
I can clean my entire house multiple times, walk the dogs, and I don't know, go work out and do whatever. I could do whatever I want. And I cannot get that same pain in my lower back at this point.
Oh, that's also a testament to how much stronger you got.
Yeah.
Through your whole process, which is great.
I mean,
but the impact that the weight loss had as well.
There's no cure for your fitness and your weight, like for your overall health, that doesn't include time and hard work.
Yep.
Hard work over time. And
by the way, with that said, that point alone can save people so much financial issue. And, it drives me crazy. I see people, I have clients that come to me, and then I did that one, and I hired these other guys or women or whatever who had these programs, and they seemed great. And I just wasn't successful. I couldn't do it. And all these things are just, and I start to add up the dollar signs in my mind. I'm like, oh my God, they spent like thousands of dollars on this absolute nonsense, when the answer costs nothing or very little. A few pieces of equipment or a gym membership, and maybe getting some guidance from a trainer in the beginning, or working with a dietitian for a short period of time or a period of time. Just being taught what to do by someone who actually is qualified, who actually knows what they're doing, and actually is invested in their success, instead of, apple cider vinegar drinks and juice cleanses that, what juice cleanses are going to do? Juice cleanses are going to do one thing. They're going to make you a hurricane on the toilet bowl for about a week. It's no fun. It's going to just literally destroy your intestinal tract.
I've been doing, not often, but I've been doing those little juice things. Immunity juice. I haven't done a ton.
That's a little different, maybe. I don't know.
It's not really different.
Okay, all right. I take it back.
I feel like it works. I feel healthier.
I don't know about that.
I'm also saying, it's mostly turmeric. I feel like most of those shots, you feel something burn and you drink it because it's full of turmeric, and then you have an explosive time.
Yes, you do. It definitely happens. That's the thing. I stand by that statement. I know it sounds ridiculous. Hurricane in the toilet bowl. It's true. So, it's not going to end well, literally. But it's just about eating healthy, learning what the right thing to do is, and following that path. Once you have the knowledge, there's no gimmicks. There's no let me reset my body. No, there's no resetting of the body. It's just, let me just start doing things the right way. Whether it happens right away or whether you go through some steps to get there, that's all it has. That's all it is. But, I
think one of the best ways to cleanse your body, though, is drinking more water.
Oh, yeah.
Really, you're wanting to cleanse your body, drink more water.
Well, that was going to be one of the things I was going to say, actually, the drinking the water. When I personally got out of shape that time, about 6 years ago, increasing dramatically my water intake, and there you go, drinking water. I took a few sips today myself on this talk, but it actually, we should all drink about a gallon a day. Okay, the average person, that's about the right amount, right? I've heard people say that's too much. No, it's not. That's about what you need in a day. And yeah, you might have to get up and go to the bathroom a few more times, but what? It's healthy.
And if you're really petite and that is too much, then don't drink that much. I think that's important too. Even if you go to a dietitian, you still have to sort of use some reasoning. We're still responsible for ourselves. When you hear from your trainer, drink a gallon of water, and that you should not drink a gallon of water. Not that you don't want to, not that you're making an excuse, then you don't do it because you're still responsible for you. Other people are just trying to guide you. Like they're trying to guide you and impart their knowledge on you. They don't have your answer. You have to work for your answer.
100%. I love that. It's so true. Yeah. And, that's why I always stress everyone's journey is different. Everyone's situation is different. That's why I try to avoid at all costs giving a blanket statement of do this and do that. And this will work for you. It really is so different for everyone. And, in my own videos, I say these things. Like I remember my pull-up video that I made a couple videos back. Towards the end of the video, I even have a whole statement next to me. And I say, I'm not going to promise X results in this amount of time. I'm not even making any representations or promises, even if it means less clicks and views for me, because you know what? Everyone is different. And I cannot promise you anything because it's not the right thing to do. So yes, everyone has the responsibility to also do their research and do their homework to figure out, is this appropriate for me? Is this something that is reasonable and achievable for me to even do? But getting back to the water thing, one of the great reasons why water helps with weight loss, it also helps to give you that feeling of being full. So you're less likely to go and reach for something to snack on in between meals or overeat during a meal. It helps you to feel satiated. Saying you should not eat enough food. That's not at all what I'm saying, but it helps as an aid to help you to eat a little bit less within the boundaries that you've set for yourself, within the range that you want to be in. It is just a helpful tool.
Give yourself grace when you set goals. Like if you set 5 goals and you feel they're attainable and you go after them and you come up short, evaluate why, and then adjust and continue forward. There is no catastrophic thing that you can choose to do that will excuse throwing away all the progress that you've made because you had a cookie, for instance. Or if you miss one workout and that leads to 2 weeks of not working out, that's not good. But the solution to that is to start working out again. Yep. So like a lot of times we catastrophize the decisions or our shortcomings and then use that as an excuse in some regards, like, oh, I'm a failure. I'm not going to get it. Like I can't eat healthy. I can't work out. And then we halt our own progress, like continuing forward and letting what we can do, our good habits snowball is so important.
Well, the mental part of it is the biggest struggle for most people. It really is.
Yeah.
We tend to be, all of us tend to be our own worst critics. I'm looking at some of the notes, or things that you sent there. And even from what we were just discussing, there's so many different things that I still would love to talk more about, in a future episode, like, hey, what about someone who doesn't have a supportive spouse? Okay. Yeah. And they don't have that support at home or they get sabotaged by that or by their friends. Like that's something that I think is super important to kind of talk about too, because I've seen that in so many ways play out with people, clients and friends and people who I know. And that's an important topic that isn't talked about enough.
Well, and I hope that people take away from this video a lot of great things for their own journeys. Something else I hope people take away is if you leave comments and it's topics that we feel would benefit lots of people, like we're going to come back to it. Thanks so much for being here, It's
my pleasure. I'll always show up for you. You know that. And it's absolutely a pleasure to do this with you. I have fun every single time.
Me too. Wow. I'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks again so much for watching with us. There is a full podcast episode. This was a hodgepodge pieces of our full conversation on how to start a weight loss journey or fitness journey in a sustainable way. It is linked below in video format. Also, it's available on Apple and Spotify. I look forward so much to seeing you next time. Love you guys and enjoy these parting words from Aaron.
And to anyone who watched the recent video, I'm not going to name names. If you know what I mean, if you know what I'm talking about, soda, diet soda is not healthier than water.